Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the FTSQ podcast. I'm your host, Lena Robinson, and we are celebrating nonconformists as we do every single week. And today we have a very dear friend of mine. I seem to be getting a lot of very dear friends of mine on, but anyway, this is Jenny Leeming. Welcome, Jenny.
Hi, Lena. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So Jenny and I met, I was trying to figure it out the other day. It must be like 8 or 9 years ago now, roundabout, at the New Zealand Businesswomen's Network. Shout out to the Kiwi ladies. And we sort of had it off from the outset, I think. And Jenny is definitely a nonconformist for me in every way, shape or form. She is, from a working and career perspective, is a strategist, specifically around working with businesses. You've had a 20 plus career. I'm guessing it may be a little bit longer than 20 years.
Don't out me.
Cheeky. And you've been working on the kind of projects that have maybe never been done before on a global scale. You've worked with people like the Royal Mail, BT, you've worked with the NHS, and you've even more recently been doing some work around the Ukraine response to the refugee and building a refugee program for one of the city councils. And I think what's interesting about that, it's sort of you jumped around all over the place on different things, but the strategy and that purpose-driven approach has always been at the heart. And I think that purpose-driven, value-driven thing is something that's always joined the two of us. So welcome. And the first question I'll ask then is about, which I ask everybody before we get into this is your life bit. I always ask the question is, what does nonconformity mean to you personally?
That's a really good question. And I think it's one that probably has many answers. And for me, when we first met, my answer would have been different to what it is today. And I think at the moment for me, nonconformity is openness, curiosity, and willing to throw the rule book out the window, or in some cases, not even look at the rule book and realize it's there.
Yeah.
It's there's an element of it that is part of creativity and forward momentum. It's harnessing those really interesting skills and abilities that people have that are sometimes not always seen. There's so many aspects to what nonconformity is, depending on the environment you're in. For me, and in my world, it's becoming more of the norm, which I find hilarious. Well, because I'm drawn to things that are new, different, unusual, haven't been done before. So there isn't necessarily a rule book. So it seems to be in my arena a bit more than others.
And what's interesting, obviously this is about also where you're moving to as well. But what's interesting about that, having looked at you and I have known each other for a long time, although what was interesting reading your LinkedIn profile again today, just to remind myself of where you've worked and everything, there's quite a lot of what I would call status quo conformist brand names in there, yet what projects that you've worked on haven't been. Tell me a little bit more about how that's worked.
It's talk about a contradiction, right?
Right.
And especially given when I was a kid, my mum always said, "Oh, you need to go and get a job at a good company," and I was always like, "I'm not going and working for one of them." And then you look at my career, when I've been in the big corporates, it's typically when there is something incredibly big and incredibly new that nobody knows how to do, has never been done before. one piece I worked on was a first globally. It was the biggest technology program being run outside of the military. No one knew how to do it. So
Mm,
it's you're sitting inside this big organization that has processes, procedures, ways of working, structures, hierarchies. None of it applies.
mm.
Or they're trying to work out which elements apply. Because the thing you're doing is so new and so different that you can't use the history to create the future. Um, and it's either big new or it's big change. And in
Right.
either one of those situations, the playbooks don't work. So you're navigating and defining things essentially for the first time, even though you're within a structure or a corporate that may be seen as being something quite stalwart and, you know, governed by a big playbook.
I think what made me think about then is that despite there's a terminology, and you've heard me use this many times before, that don't conform to the norm. There is power in your difference. And I think what's interesting about what you've just said is that in the projects you've been employed to work in and bring yourself to the table, it's that thing that makes you look at it differently that kind of helps you in that. Would I be right in saying that
Yeah,
helps you in that
yeah,
scenario?
yeah.
Hmm, interesting. Okay. Well, so what I'm finding when I'm asking people that question is I'm loving the fact that nobody's giving me a conformity answer about nonconformity. Like everybody's giving quite different answers for different reasons. And I liked the openness point. Isn't it odd that we live in a world where one of the things you listed about what you consider nonconformity is openness? Interesting.
It, but it's
That
within
is not.
context, though.
Yeah, true.
It's, there's some areas of life and some arenas you walk into where it's all about openness. But then
Mm,
there are
true.
others where there are expectations that you're boundaried in how open you are or what you're open about. Um, and openness to me is also connected to creativity, creative thinking, problem solving.
Mm.
Um, so it's contextual.
I've never thought about conformity and non-conformity being contextual. That's made me have a really good think, actually. I think we might delve into that a little bit more. But I'm going to jump on to the next question because today is all about getting to know Jenny Leeming. Uh, so tell us about yourself. Talk. Your upbringing. You're obviously not from around here. You're from New Zealand, like I am. But your education, things that have happened in your career, family life, hobbies, all those things that kind of make your life story up and the milestones that have happened. This is your life.
This is
Go.
my life. Yes, I'm from New Zealand. I grew up in the Wellington region, and I say the Wellington region because we moved a lot when I was younger. Um, and yeah, it's a great place to grow up. There's a wee saying about Wellington, it's you can't beat Wellington on a good day. And I've traveled the world now, and that still holds true. You really can't beat Wellington on a good day. Um,
That's true.
yeah, it's a
I've hardly ever been there when it's not been sunny. I mean, for those of you that don't know who aren't Kiwis, Wellington is extremely well known for being, well, it's called Windy Wellington. And when you fly into it from anywhere in the country, whether it be a big plane or a small one, oh my goodness, it's scary. Proper scary. But yeah. So what is it about? Was there anything about growing up in Wellington that's kind of helped you be that person that doesn't necessarily fit the status quo
I think Wellington's a
or the
really
conformity?
I think Wellington's a really interesting city. It's the capital city, and it's also incredibly cultural, or it was when I grew up. In my era, it was incredibly cultural, and it was the political capital. Um, there's a lot of stuff going on in our era in New Zealand,
Olden days.
the olden days. Um, there were a lot of things going on in New Zealand. The rate of change, the pace of change, all things I didn't recognize at the time, but foreign investment in New Zealand, because it was such a small population, it meant we had, we had party line telephones and call waiting and all those things as teenagers that didn't exist anywhere else,
Mm.
because New Zealand was the test ground for the technology. So there's a lot of things that I think growing up in New Zealand gave me, and Wellington specifically added to that, was the cultural element. And it's a big little city.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
it can't expand because it's surrounded by cliffs and hills and mountains. I call them cliffs. It's rock face. Um, so it can't expand. It can only go high rise. It's also on a fault line, so you've got to be careful how you do that. Um, so it had a real sense of intimacy about it, whilst also being the capital city.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that,
And what was it like? Oh, sorry.
as I say, I think that really informed my desire to see the world, and also the idea that I could. It was never a question.
Hmm.
If it wasn't, we're talking sort of late teenage years here, going into the city and going to see all the art house films. They're called art house films. Um, and there'd be a protest about something you'd go to, and then there'd be an international film festival, and then all these things were accessible and encouraged. So for me, I think part of what Wellington gave me was it showed me what was possible, and it never once said that I couldn't be part of it.
That's quite a powerful uh ethos to be feeling as a female.
Well, around the same time, do you remember the ad campaign on TV?
Oh, which one? There were so many that
Girl,
supported
girls can
female.
do anything.
Yeah, girls can do anything. So true.
We grew up in the era of TV ads that said "Be a tidy Kiwi, so don't litter," and girls can do
Yep,
anything. That was literally our two TV channels that turned into
true.
three. Um,
Oh, those are the days.
so so there was messaging there that was really encouraging.
I'd forgotten about those. I
Yeah,
mean, it's interesting because the girls can do anything thing, for those of you that aren't from New Zealand, um, for me, it's a mantra that's just automatically in my head. I didn't even remember that it was part of an ad
yeah.
campaign until you just said. And I was like, oh yeah, it was too, because it's just something that I've grown up just inherently believing.
Mm.
Interestingly enough. So how did that affect you? So with your schooling and those kinds of things, did you, because you're obviously good at, on one hand, not fitting in, but fitting in at the same time, because it's almost like you're balancing the two.
Yeah.
How did that work at school?
Well,
Were you doing it then?
I didn't fit in at school all the time. I mean, obviously, when you're really
Mm,
young, you do, because nobody sees difference when you're in early
yeah.
school. But as soon as everybody else starts growing and you're significantly shorter than everybody, it's like, oh, there's a difference. Um, and I moved. So I went to three different primary schools, um,
Oh wow.
which was not common in our era. Like everybody in the schools I went to, everybody had grown up together. And it wasn't just that I
Mm,
went to different
I definitely did.
schools, I moved out of area.
Oh
So
wow.
I
Okay.
changed area. That's why I say I grew up in the Wellington region. So I had the
Right.
city experience, I had the coast experience, I had the suburb experience. Um, it,
They're quite different, those
they're
three,
very
from each other.
different. They're very different.
Yeah, especially New Zealand.
Yeah, yeah, very
So
different, and all
how
like 20 minutes away from each other.
so you were used to kind of, because I think once you leave everybody that you've grown up with to a point,
Mm.
which I did when I was 15 to move from the South Island to the North Island, quite late actually. Um, there's a feeling of, did you always feel a bit other?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we were also
Yeah.
a little bit different because we were a single parent family and we moved
Okay.
into areas that were not. So that was also, small little area. And people are going, there's only one parent. So
Yeah.
there was the
Slightly rural New Zealandish, isn't it, really?
yeah, but it really wasn't.
Yeah.
Which it was the time and the area we were in. It was just new and different. So
Yeah. So
it
what did
was
you do to cope with that then?
I just got on with it. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
you, it's nothing you can change. It's it didn't make me any less of who I was. It was just interesting because it was noticeable because it's not the sort of thing that children sort of pick up on and carry and think. They're curious and they ask, but they don't have
Mm.
judgment
Yeah.
unless the adults that parent them have judgment.
Mm.
So
True.
it became really clear who the people were who were going to be good friends because their parents didn't care.
Yeah.
The kids
Yeah.
whose parents found it difficult, um, their children found it difficult.
Yeah. So it sort of just gets hand down generationally, that approach to the world,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah.
So you've kind of y- gone through school. How, at which point did you sort of start thinking about careers and all those kinds of, or even just first start working?
I'm going to say, think about a career. I don't think I've ever thought about a career. Like, never. But we can get on to
No.
that. So my first job, I think I was 12,
Oh my
and
goodness.
I had a
Wow.
paper run.
Oh,
My
cute.
granddad, my granddad made me little sacks to put on the edge of each side of my bike out of potato sacks, and I folded up all these local community newspapers with their ad leaflets in them, and I went and delivered them all twice a week. Of course, heavily helped by my mum
Of course.
because we
But
lived on the hills, and it was like, yeah,
our parents are amazing with supporting us with things like that, aren't they? And I don't think it's till we get older and we look back that we realize just how much they did with things like that.
yeah, yeah,
That's for sure. So one of the things I know about you personally is you are a grafter. You work so hard and you throw yourself into everything. Um, you start. I mean, that's quite young to be sort of almost very entrepreneurial, of like getting going and getting working and that kind of thing. Um, Obviously, from there, I mean, you were still at school. Obviously, you were 12. Um, how did that sort of move through schooling and working and on into
well, I
teenage years, I guess?
I got I did that. I don't remember doing that for that long. Um, I think maybe about a year.
Oh, okay.
Um, but that's because we moved and everything changed, so the job didn't fit the circumstances anymore. But when I was 14, I got a job at a bookshop down at the mall. Because in New Zealand,
Oh,
back in those days, you were allowed a job if you were under 15, or if you were 14, you were allowed to work as long as it was for a family business. It didn't have to be your family business, it just had to be a family business.
I
So
didn't even know that,
yeah,
actually. I don't-
so
I suppose
I
because I always worked with my parents.
mm, well, see, I did that too. Um,
Mm.
at some point after the bookshop, um, yeah, I worked at a bookshop Thursday nights and Saturdays, so late night shopping and Saturdays, and I got trained on the lotto counter. Possibly wasn't supposed to be doing that,
Probably not.
although I went into the lottery headquarters to be trained. So maybe it was lotto was new back then, so I don't think they'd put the
Yeah,
rules
I
in.
remember when it first got introduced.
Yeah,
It used to
and
be Kiwi Lottery before that, didn't it?
yeah, and I think they yeah, so I was selling lotto tickets to people and selling books to people.
Excellent. I didn't even know you could sell lotto tickets in a bookstore. That's hilarious.
That's where they used to put them all.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No. Anyway. So you taught you so you did that for what, a couple of years or something?
No, I did that for just under a year because I think all the laws were starting to change, and I think the family business, it had a number of different locations, but I think they were looking to do something else. So they hired a couple of university students and I lost my job. So I had to wait until I was 15 before I could get another job. And then I went to trusty old McDonald's like everybody does for
I've
my,
never worked at McDonald's.
oh, it's a running joke in one of my friend circles about which McDonald's we all worked at. It's hilarious. Um,
What is that like? Because if you're a person that's a bit of a nonconformist, McDonald's is the complete opposite. That's everything's in
well,
lines. There's process, blah blah blah.
yeah. Um, but
Or
it's
supposed to
but it's
be
also
anyway.
a bunch of teenagers running. I mean, it was a big store. It had 13 registers and 3 stories,
Oh, that's big.
biggest in the Southern Hemisphere at the time.
Mm.
Um, I believe, I could be wrong, but it used to have the head office in the office section on the above the third floor, or maybe that was the third floor. It's a long time ago. Um, yeah, so my little after school job at McDonald's, where I very quickly became a crew trainer, very quickly became a closer, very quickly was pretty much working a 40-hour week while I was at secondary school.
How on earth did you? How did you manage that?
I don't know. Weekends and late nights.
So there's what's interesting about that is you got going and work early.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a dumb question. Excuse me, everybody. I should know the answer to the question I'm about to ask, but my brain is not remembering stuff today because, head stuff. Um, did you go to university?
Yeah.
Oh, you did. I thought you did. My brain just for a second couldn't remember.
I worked
So
in a
you're
bar at
at,
university and the New
oh, did
Zealand Fire
you?
Service, and I temped. Yeah.
I
And
thought
I
you worked
also
at the New Zealand Fire
I
Service.
also volunteered at a telephone counselling service aimed at children.
Wow.
And at
So
some point in there, I was the chairperson, and we also worked with one of the other areas and developed an 0800 national call number and standardized all the training and everything.
So you started going into the doing things that have never been done before really early by the sounds of it.
Yeah,
What made you feel okay about doing that?
just
Like
curious.
where did the confidence come from? Oh, curious.
It's not
Okay.
confidence, it's curiosity. And also, okay, so I think it's a couple of things. There's like with developing the national network, it wasn't my idea. I think it was Auckland's idea. I can't remember because it was a long time ago. Um, but it came out of there being lots of different places like there were youth lines up and down the country, but they couldn't all get volunteers because some of them were in really small places, but they had really high need. Like at the time,
Right.
I believe Invercargill, very, very small place, not that many people, had the highest teenage suicide rate in the country.
Oh, you
at
did
the
it.
time. At the time,
Didn't know that.
yeah. So
Interesting. Okay.
there were lots of places up and down the country that had need and not enough resource. So whoever made the decision that we should look at how we could get funding and develop a nationwide 0800 number because there were people in need who were not being serviced. And you throw me a situation like that, and I'm getting all in behind that one.
I know I've seen you, just so that everybody knows, Jenny has lived with me as well, and I have seen her throwing herself into a new project. Oh my goodness. Amazing.
Yeah, don't tell me something can't be done because I won't believe you and I'll prove you wrong. Um, but yeah, I'm a sucker for a cause. I am a sucker for a good cause. Um, but I mean, that was university years. You jump in, you, you do a million and one things, and then you go, I'm really tired now.
Because what's interesting about that trajectory so far is it's almost back to front. So
Yeah.
most people would have done the university and then gone and started getting work, but you were already not only working but running teams and essentially running the biggest McDonald's. Was it a franchise?
It
Yeah.
wasn't when I first
No.
started there,
Okay.
but it
You're
became
doing that. You're not even
franchise.
20, are
I
you, at that
wasn't I
point?
wasn't running it. I was a crew trainer and I did shifts.
Okay.
I did opens and
Okay. So
closes. So, maybe I was left in charge of the
high
store by myself.
responsibility. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's high responsibility, though. I mean, you weren't just going in, doing your shift and leaving. Like, there was responsibility, crew training,
Yeah.
opening and closing.
Yeah.
Like, I know you, for me, that is essentially running the day to day, I think.
The
Maybe
manager,
not.
well, I guess there's a, mm,
But you're young to be
yeah.
doing that.
Well,
And to have done all
I
that, to
was
be doing all
17,
that
I was
before you go to
17,
university.
I was 17 when I was doing
17.
opens and
Wow.
closes. I was younger when I was doing closes, but I was 17 when I was in charge of opening up one of the stores. And I would get everything going and get it ready, do all the
Do you think,
deliveries, all of it.
yeah, sorry, interrupted you there. Do you think that doing that way around and going to university second to the starting of working, helped you focus better at university or not?
I don't know because it's the only way I've done it. I mean, I actually
Interesting.
had a couple of years out. I didn't go straight to university from school.
Oh, tell me about that.
So if you know this, other people don't, I'm a great music lover. And
Mm.
I used to spend a lot of my, after school McDonald's job money on music. I would go into the local music shop and buy lots of different things. And one day, the manager walks over to me while I'm browsing through the CDs. Yes, the old days, people. Um, and offers me a job.
Right.
And I'm like, I've hit the jackpot. Kid in a candy store. Um, but of course I went bright red and was like, what on earth is going on right now? You know, I've just come in to buy a CD and what? um, so I went, of course, but I'm not going to quit my job at McDonald's. I'll do both.
Oh my God. And go to school.
Um, well, the music shop happened just after school, like
Okay.
literally within weeks of school finishing. It was actually somebody I went to school with who worked there and who was leaving, so they thought it was hilarious that I got asked to work there. Um, but they asked me to work there because I bought an eclectic range of music. So they weren't worried about, how to cover the bases of who was interested in what and, would I be able to talk about it? Would I know what other people were talking about? Um, and that sort of took me to then becoming a manager of one of the stores when the manager of the store that I was working at became a franchisee. So he asked me to go and run his shop for him. So I did that. Um, and working music retail is quite a different experience to what you think it's going to be. Well, it
Mm.
was back then. Uh, there were lots of things about it that were great fun, but you get a crash course lesson because you're dealing with music reps from all the different companies who are, trying to, they have their targets to meet when it comes to which artist is being promoted at the moment, which artist is getting radio play, who's going to be touring soon. This is the flavor of the week because the record company's invested really heavily. So there's all sorts of really interesting dynamics going on. And back in those days in New Zealand, I think there was quite a bit of stress behind the scenes with all of that. Um,
Mm.
but it was, I mean, the people were incredible. Um, really, really interesting people. And I was young and I was working with people who'd been in the industry their entire lives and they were heading off to retirement. So, there aren't that many places where you actually end up with a workforce that's multi-generational, super highly skilled, really knowledgeable, and great fun. Um, and that was my experience in music retail. That and going to some very cool
Well, this,
concerts and
oh, I bet. I bet you met some amazing people, did you?
yeah, yeah, met a few.
Coming coming into the store and so forth. What's interesting again about this is that you're still not 20,
No,
right?
no.
Extraordinary. You're managing a store, blah blah blah. And then at which point do you decide to go to university and what did you decide to study?
So I always knew I wanted to go to university because to me that was the way that would open up a lot more for me.
Mm,
Because that's what you're told. But well, I say that's what you're told. No one in my family had gone to university,
right.
um, but I wanted to do that because I was curious, and curious people go to university. So
Mm,
that was my thing. But they had introduced fees and all sorts of things for my year. So it was going to cost a lot of money. And I'd already moved out of home. I moved out of home when I finished school. So I was paying rent and I was, doing the responsible
and
thing.
you're not even 20.
No,
Wow.
yeah. Um, so I was working, paying rent, doing my own thing with the aim of going to university. Um, and the only way I could go to university without incurring more cost than I had the funds for was to go as an independent.
Right.
Um, and I had to be over 20 to do that. Otherwise, I would be means tested against my parents' income.
Oh yeah, I remember they were doing that. I mean, having not gone to university, well, I did a little bit, but that's when I was working as way into my adulthood. Um, yeah, I forgot they used to they
Yeah.
started that about that time,
It's when
didn't
they
they?
put the
I
fees
think
in, when
means.
they put the fees in, because
Mm,
they created a structure for student loans and student allowances. And I sort of looked at it all and went, this is going to be really, really tight. Like even with the student allowance, I still had to work.
mm,
So it's yeah. So I looked at it all and I went, okay, well, I've got a couple of years to kill. Let's go and do something interesting. So I had no idea what that was. And when I finished at the music shop, I I went because that was up on the Kapiti Coast and I wanted to go into Wellington. So I'm like, well, what next? So I went and did a computer course, how to use
yep.
Word, Excel, and PowerPoint basics. Um, So I went and did this course, and I thought, well, I probably need to know how to use a computer more than just ordering. And actually, I don't even think we used a computer for that. I think we did it all in a book and made phone calls. We never, yeah. Anyway,
Oh, I remember the order books with the blue, what do you
yeah.
call it? The stuff that, what do you call that stuff?
Oh,
The
it,
paper that you used to
yeah,
draw on, you used to
carbon
stick it in
paper,
between the blue one.
the
Carbon
carbon
paper, that's
paper.
it.
Yeah. Where do you think you get CC
You-
from? Carbon copy.
Oh, of course. Okay, for all those young people out there, I'm going to find a picture of one of those and I'm going to put or find something, I'm going to put the link.
Yeah.
Carbon paper.
Yeah, carbon paper, the purple stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't know that's what CC meant.
yeah, carbon copy. Because remember the big
Oh my
machines
God.
when you're at primary school and they
Yeah,
had to do this? Yeah,
the Xerox machines that used to go run through.
yeah,
Oh, we've talked about that on this show before. Hilarious.
yeah. So,
Okay.
so yeah, I went off into town, did a computer course, met a woman who was a head of a department at the Wellington City Council on that computer course, and she asked me to go and work for her. So 2 days later, I was meeting her PA for coffee, and the next week I was working at the Wellington City Council.
Again, so what's interesting, I keep using the word interesting. I hate doing that. I keep referring to the same word. What is quite telling about, and it seems to be a recurring theme, you are getting noticed by people, especially employers,
Mm,
for not doing things the same way as everybody else. So you picked up by the music store person because you've got eclectic taste in music, right?
yeah,
Number one. I'm assuming that this next person's picked you up because you're not learning and behaving the same way as everybody else.
I got through.
I mean, stood out.
I got through the entire course and started teaching her how to do it because she kept getting stuck on things.
Okay.
And she was surprised at how
Right.
quickly I picked it all up.
Yeah. Is that nonconformity or is that just, I
I've just,
suppose it is a little bit,
I've
isn't
just
it?
got a fast brain,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
I
No,
don't find things like that difficult.
no,
So
that's true.
yeah,
Um, I mean, obviously, we're going to continue talking about your journey, but we're going to chuck in another question here, is because it kind of seems pertinent. Is do you consider your version of nonconformity a superpower?
absolutely,
Ah, yes. In what
absolutely.
way?
If I told you I've applied for 2 jobs in my life, um, I've applied for 2 jobs in my life that were cold.
Right, and
Every
the rest?
Everything else has been recommendations, referrals. People see me doing something and ask me to go and do something. I've never. The first job was McDonald's because even the bookshop job was a referral from somebody I knew who had the job and was leaving. Um, and the other job was when I worked for the council on the Ukraine piece, and
Oh, yeah.
I had to send an email to the recruiter saying, "Look, I'm very aware that I'm overqualified for this. I'm not looking for a career job, a career role. I actually want to do something to help the people from Ukraine. So I'm happy to be exploited." And he rang me back and he said, "We need to talk about this." And I said, "Well, look, this is where I stand." And he was like, "Okay, I'll put you forward." And I found out after I left that there had been over 400 applicants for the role.
No
Yeah,
way.
yeah, I didn't tell you that, did I?
No.
Yeah, I
Oh, wow.
over
There's a
400
lot of
applicants. I
applicants.
didn't think anyone was applying for it because it was this random, like 3 lines. It had no detail because obviously they had no idea. Um,
Yeah,
I just thought, war's broken out. Ukraine's been invaded. Let's go help the Ukrainians. Oh, here's a job doing it. Awesome.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
What's
so
interesting, what's it? I remember that time, and I remember you talking to me, obviously not revealing anything not to be talked about. But I remember you generally talking to me about it and how that was progressing as a contract. And I think you ended up working there way longer,
Mhm.
but also doing a heck of a lot more because once I got to know you and what your capabilities were, you ended up doing
I had a
more
bit of a
things.
side I had a bit of a side job at one point helping, business analysts and project managers who were working through a transformation piece.
Mm.
Um,
And
yeah.
by that stage, your experience with anything to do with um, business diversification and sort of expanding things that maybe hadn't existed before, you'd had quite years of experience of
Mm.
doing that. So,
Well, that
so
started in New Zealand.
nonconformity is a yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it is a superpower. The reason I ask that question is because for the listeners, I want them to anybody that's feeling like I stick out or I don't fit in or I'm not, I'm not the same as everybody else and they're disliking that in themselves. I want them to start seeing that terminology I often use, which is the power, there is power in your difference.
Mm.
I want them to start seeing that through the eyes or through the life experiences of my guests. And I think you've just nailed quite a bit of that
Well,
being a superpower for
yeah,
you.
and I it never once occurred to me. Like if I was to say to you that for most of my career, I thought I was failing and I was behind, when in actual fact, I was ahead of the curve, I was going faster than everybody else, and I was speeding up because I thought I was behind.
Was that partly because how people were treating you, do you think?
I think it's because I didn't realize that I had jumped into something, learned absolutely everything I could about it, and then gone off and said to them, okay, this is the direction of travel. And because they were quite often, or they were more senior and more experienced in working on big programs and all the rest of it, I would just make assumptions that they knew more than me. And
Often
that
not the
was
case.
no, really not the case. Um,
Mm,
I even had somebody pull me aside who came in, um, a consultancy had come in to do some rationalizing work because spend was going a bit chaos, going into chaos land. And and I clocked it. I was like, oh yeah, I see what they're here to do. Okay. Um, you need all this information from me. Fine. I'll sit down, I'll do a list, I'll do all this stuff for you. And they went, you do realize you're the only person who's clocked that we're here to do this. And I went, pardon? But yeah, nobody else is, no one else has worked it out yet. And I was like, what do they think you're here doing then? So, and it was that consultancy, one of the people in that consultancy who said to me, pulled me aside one day and said, slow down. You are too far ahead of everybody and they're not understanding where you're at. And I went,
mm.
pardon? Which meant they don't understand. You've got to take it back a couple of steps. You're too far ahead of them. And I didn't know that. So whenever you find difference and you think it's a negative thing, take a step back and have a look because you might find actually you're burning through your superpower and you're going way too fast.
That's quite fascinating because it took them telling you, and it probably took a while for you to believe them as well, I'd be
Yeah,
guessing, knowing
it didn't
because
happen
I
while
know
I was
you.
on that contract. It took me,
Yeah,
yeah, I, yeah, didn't see it on that contract. But there was no time to stop and reflect on that contract. That was a contract where I was taking calls at between 2 and 5 in the morning, 3 days a week.
yeah,
Um,
no.
it was it was a big chunky piece of work, and it was important.
Mm. How interesting. Again, and that I find it really fascinating that for you, you thought you weren't doing well, and you were.
Mm.
I just find that the reality and how you were feeling was so vastly different. In fact, you were too far ahead of the curve. I felt that as well sometimes, where I've felt like, oh, nobody's getting this. This is frustrating. What's happening? Why do they not understand? It's not about being, I was going to say, I mean, maybe it is sometimes I've been smarter, but it's not necessarily about, well, no, it is sometimes about being smarter than the other
I
people. It's
don't
more
know if
maybe
it's,
seeing them differently
yeah,
than other people.
I don't know if it's about being smarter, because I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room. But
Oh, I think you are sometimes.
it's about other people have different focuses.
Mm,
So they will be very, very good at what their focus is. You'll be very, very good at what your focus is. And they will see this much of your focus, and you will see this much of your focus. So it's how to help them understand all this detailed work you've been doing, even if you don't realize you're doing it because you're in the moment and things are progressing and
mm,
moving and changing. It's about recognizing how much information you're absorbing, how much I mean, the environments I've been in have been very fast paced, massive change. Everybody's kind of trying to work out what's going on. And I mean, I'm making it sound like chaos. It was organized chaos. There were stakes in the ground and we were moving forward. But every time we moved forward, we'd find things that weren't working properly or not fit for purpose, or there was a something here or a something there. And, because it was every step was forging new ground. And when you're
yeah,
in environments where every step is new ground and things are not always working because the extrapolation modeling, you learn that you can only do extrapolation modeling within a certain framework. If you go outside of that, expect it to not work. Um,
yeah.
there's lots of lessons you learn when you're forging a new path, but until you've learnt them, you don't know them. And this was back in the day where those lessons hadn't really been learnt on any sort of scale that was communicated widely. So it's easy to be ahead of, 15 steps ahead and think people are 2 steps behind when you're iterating that quickly all the time. Because those other people are not in that same iteration cycle as you. They're over here doing something else.
Mm. It's a I'd imagine with, working with organizations like, the British Gas and sorry, not British Gas, British Telecom and NHS and the Royal Mail, that are all three of them are institutions that you must have been coming up against buffers of people going, maybe not. How did you manage that when you're clearly having to push this? I mean, you're challenging the status quo, I'd be guessing,
Oh,
at those
oh yeah,
places.
oh yeah, yeah. Um, Carefully.
Okay.
It's going in and assessing the environment. So one of those environments, it was this is going to work no matter what because it's a big diversification. It's a big change, and we are banking on it.
Mm,
So the pushback didn't exist in the way you'd expect it to. So it wasn't, you can't do it this way. It's like, how do we make it work? We've got deadlines, we've got to make it work. It's not
mm,
do it this way, it's how do we make it work? Um, and that had its own challenges because we were trying to make something work that it wasn't working. I mean, we got it there, but it took a lot. And everyone I've spoken to, years later, some of us still keep in touch. And to this day, we all say there is nothing we've ever worked on since that has been as challenging as that because there hasn't been a program developed like that. And you know, I used to think there would never be something on that scale with that degree of change again, but I don't know now. I don't know. There might be.
mm,
So that environment, it was communicate, get cover, justify everything you're doing. Because if you can justify why you're doing it, then you've got your risk cover.
Yeah. Which
Um,
is quite difficult, I think, for some people. It's a challenge that I've often had with, I like yourself, I will look at the world in a very different way than often a lot of my colleagues use. And as a consultant, that's now for me a big superpower. But
mm.
in a corporate role, it was challenging because, and it reminds me, I was going to ask you a question about this, is that what the value of relying on, I want to use the word instinct or gut, gut instinct on things. That's probably not the right word, but
But it's also
you have,
experience. I think it all kind of comes in.
yeah.
Your experience informs how you see things.
But
Um,
sometimes for me, I was not able to prove why I knew something needed to be done a certain way. And I think that's a real challenge for a lot of people that sit in the nonconformity area because you often, those people I think tend to rely more on their instincts. They know they cannot necessarily prove it, particularly in what you're talking about, which is new, never been
mm.
done before territories. How do you advise that somebody deals with that? Or do you have any advice on
So
that?
whenever it's the same advice for that as it is for working within systems that say computer says no, you can't do that. You have to do it this way.
Yeah.
And that is build your relationships. When you're in an environment, build your relationships. Prove yourself on the things that can be evidenced, and then people will take a risk on you on the things that can't.
Which
And
is not always easy for people that are non-conformists, because often the ones that I'm talking to are neurodiverse and what have you. That's a big challenge.
but yes, but you can still prove yourself in the work that you do. If you are known as
True.
somebody who is good at what you do, people will take more of a risk on you when you say, I think we need to go left instead of right.
Well, that's about earning trust and
Yeah,
building reputation, isn't it?
yeah. And
Mm.
also start small. Like this is a mistake I made. And that is I made a lot of very small decisions that I didn't need cover for all the time. And I never told anybody.
Mm.
I literally just got on with it and I was left to it. I got on with it. A certain degree of those would have been seen, but a lot of them wouldn't have been because I had 2 seconds to say yes to that or no to that, or let's do it this way, or no, I don't think that's going to work. Let's try this, or this is a problem. I'm not kidding. In one environment, I would be sitting at the computer, I would be on chat on the computer, I would be headset on a phone call, and I would have my headphone from my BlackBerry on the other ear, and I would have a queue of people at my desk. When stuff was really kicking off, it was insane. So
Yeah.
there wasn't time to go, do a weekly wrap up. Oh, by the way, blah blah blah.
Mm.
Not big enough fish to fry. If you are not working in an insane environment like that where you're not really sleeping much and you're working ridiculous hours, which I don't recommend, leads to
No,
burnout.
me neither.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, been there, done that, got the t-shirt,
Yep.
not doing it again. Um, it's build your relationships, prove yourself, and if you think you've got ideas and things and you haven't done that yet, then go and find somebody who's got the trust, who's got all
Mm.
that already, and walk them through what you think and why. Even if there isn't some sort of logic to it, if you can see it and you can sort of articulate something around that to somebody else who might get it, you can get it over the line. And once you bring somebody on board, you'll bring somebody else on board. And then next thing you know, you start to get the reputation. Like, let your work do the talking, but make sure you show people and tell people because they're not paying attention to you. They've
Yeah.
got their own stuff to do.
There's a lot of, when I've been mentoring, particularly young people, or sometimes older people as well, um, it might be for me, I recognize that maybe it's a cultural thing. I've never had an issue. I'm not going to say blow my own trumpet because it's not about that, but I've always made sure the right people knew what I'd been doing,
See, I
even
never
though it
bothered.
wasn't, yeah. But you, there's a really fine line between doing that and just being a cocky pain in the
Yeah.
ass. And it's not about that. It's not about showing off, but it is about seeking the recognition you deserve, which I
Mm.
think is a really powerful thing and something that I know a lot of people struggle with.
And I think that one you've pointed out something really important is there is the whole cocky, I've done this, blah, blah, blah. And it's why I often use the words of bring people along for the ride, take them on the journey with you,
Yeah.
because it's very different when you're including people versus when you're telling
Mm,
people. And that's the trick to how you
mm,
change things. Like when computer says no
yeah.
and you're trying to do something. I mean, I was running a piece of a program, and we had a very tight timeline. It was a very fast timeline, and the organization would not sign anything off unless it met 100% across the
Hmm.
board. Now,
Yeah.
technology programs, 80/20 rule applies ish. 80% there, go for it. Okay, we'll, fix going forward, because half the time, some of those things are not going to matter. And sometimes the thing you need to fix is actually different.
Mm.
It's iterative. Whereas this organization was like, we don't release unless it's 100%. And all
That's
of their,
unrealistic, isn't it?
no, not for the organization.
Yeah, fair enough.
They and I can see why. Like I didn't want that to not be a thing. But what I did
Mm,
say to them is, okay, but we're working in technology, and technology needs this level of flex, and this is why. So I took them through a journey, and I had to go through their whole entire gating process and get it agreed how we would operate within their gating process, because we still had to, even though we couldn't actually comply with their gating process. We didn't meet the criteria for a number of the gates. We didn't have the artifacts required for a number of the gates. So we had to go and get an agreement of how we were going to operate within that structure. So we still passed the gating requirement, but we didn't have to fulfill all the requirements that every other part of the business has to. And they'd never done that before. So that was
yeah.
really tricky. And actually, halfway through the process, they decided they didn't want to honor that anymore, because they got scared because something in
Mm,
technology went a bit wrong, as it
yeah.
does.
Funny that.
Yeah.
That's what it tends to
Yeah.
do.
So it's you have to revisit them. You can't just go, oh yeah, it's
Mm.
done. You've got to keep having the conversations and keep the communication open.
So you've brought us to a really good segue, actually. So obviously technology and where it's going, it brings us on to the topic of the future. So what do you think the future is for the nonconformists? Are we at a point in time where it's starting to change?
I think it's been changing for a while, but
Mm,
it's been changing in more niche ways. Um, you kind of have to be at this end of a spectrum. Um, you've got to be working for companies that think differently. You've got to be working
mm,
for startups. You've got to be, in that kind of smaller arena. I think what's happening
brave.
now, mm, but I think what's happening now is the bigger corporates, what I call the Titanics, they are going to struggle,
Mm,
and they are not going to be the big business that everybody aspires to work for anymore. And there are going to be lots and lots and lots of small and medium sized businesses that are more agile, more flexible, more adaptable, and have better cultures because they can control the culture because
mm,
they are smaller.
yeah.
And I think that's where nonconformists will be valued more, utilized more, feel seen more, um, but also held more accountable.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, well, because you can't be
I think they haven't
invisible.
been,
You cannot be invisible in a
yeah,
smaller business. You can't.
true.
Um, so the exception to that, I think, is there was something I was reading a little while ago, and it was to do with autism, I believe. And it was around, is it MI5 or MI6? I confused the two.
Yeah, I
Hiring
don't know.
specialist teams of neurodiverse people because their pattern recognition is so much quicker that they are getting through, they are solving things so much faster. So they've set up a unit.
Oh, wow.
So there's
I think you might have given me something to read on
I
that,
think
actually. I
we
remember
did,
reading.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's now recognition out there of how being different and whether that difference is your brain is wired slightly differently, whether that difference is culturally you're very different and the way you operate is different. Differences can come in all shapes and forms.
Mm.
I think there is more of a recognition of the value of difference. And I know I'm saying it in a climate where there are certain countries in the world who are trying to stamp that out. Um,
Yes, I don't think we need to say who that is. I
no.
think we all know who's blowing that trumpet. Um,
um, but I think smart businesses understand that if you want to achieve something, you can't all be the same.
yeah.
Um, if you want to do something different, if you want to have a different sort of environment, and also I think because workplaces used to be workplaces, you clock in, clock out. Now a workplace is somewhere where people go for fulfillment, not just a paycheck. They want to feel
Mm,
like they're adding value. They want to feel like they are valued. They want to meet people that they might socialize with. Most people meet their partners in a workplace now, um, or online dating apps. Um, but it's the nature of work is very different now. So newer companies or companies that have a mobility and a motility to how they operate are going to set the trends going forward because they already are. And they're now talking about it because we've got AI, we've got social media, we've got all this stuff sitting there now that those businesses that used to be small and locked away somewhere because they had like 100 people working for them, some of them now have the biggest platforms on social media
mm,
and talk about it.
yeah.
You've got these businesses where their revenue is ridiculous, but also what they're doing is pushing the boundaries, pushing the edges. Um, you've got voices, and I think if we look back, things started to change, and and organizations like TED popped up and gave people a voice.
Mm.
Now I can bet you bottom dollar most of the people that were the early TED talk people, they're all nonconformists. I mean,
Oh, totally.
a classic one, Simon Sinek,
Well, yeah.
did a TED talk
Everybody that listens.
and
Yep.
look at what's happened now.
Yep. Yeah. He's proved time and time again that where his trajectory was going
Yeah,
was definitely
but it's
right.
the exposure, right?
Yeah.
The TED talk gave him the exposure. The stuff was already there. It's like it started off with TED talks. Now we've got social media. Now social media is evolving again. AI is
Mm,
coming into the mix. Um, it's it's like any tool. And my when I had a corporate history, or when I worked in corporate, I was working in technology, and technology changes quickly. But the thing that
yeah.
I have always held steadfast is that the tools and the technology are only ever as good as the people using them.
Ah, I mean, I agree.
And that sort of broadens itself into how are you implementing it? How are you designing it? What's your expectation? You can't just take a piece of technology and plug it in and go woohoo unless it's an Apple computer. Um, because
Even
well, yeah, everything has its limitations. But
yeah.
if the conversation at the moment around AI, and AI is going to replace everyone's jobs. AI is going to provide a lot of support, if it's utilized well, if people know how to prompt, if they're not scared of using it, but also,
Mm.
I mean, the number of situations where I've heard of people in what I would call relatively senior roles shortcutting, going and using AI to write a proposal, not checking it properly and presenting it to a board. And that's when you really find out that actually people have been providing cover for them in their job because they don't know what they're talking about.
Mm.
It's, AI is going to expose people who don't know what they're talking about very, very quickly. I mean, you go and do a search on YouTube and you watch the videos of the people's eye rolls and all the rest of it when they're reading a job application that they know has been written by AI.
Mm.
You can tell it may learn your character. You may be able to tell it to do things in a certain manner, but it's still, at this point in the game, it's still obvious what AI looks like. That will
Yeah,
change.
it is.
That will change,
Yeah.
but it's obvious. And it's not just
Yeah.
from, they say, oh, there's a dash here and that's definitely AI. Um, it's how it structures sentences. It's how it behaves is still a giveaway. So
Yeah.
anybody who is taking that tool and thinking it's going to give them the keys to the kingdom, if they don't understand how to use it correctly, it's going to give you the bars, not the keys. You are
Yeah.
going to lock yourself in somewhere and pay the price for what you've done. You know,
Yeah. No.
it's you really do have to look at stuff at the moment and go, how do we do this? Play with it, explore, but remember, critical thinking, critical thought
Mm.
still applies. And also,
Yeah.
so does collaboration. Use your AI, use your tools, but then go and speak to a human and run
Mm.
it past them, sanity check it. You know,
It's like we've slipped into my other podcast. No, I definitely agree with you on that. I would love to carry on talking about that particular subject, but we're running out of time, and I've got one more question to ask of you, which is, and I ask everybody this question again: is which nonconformist do you admire and why?
I have two.
Okay, cool,
Um,
go.
and the first one, Simon Sinek.
Yep.
Um,
Why? So that was a pun.
yeah, I know. Start with why.
Yeah, that was
Um,
fine.
he his journey is really interesting. So he started off, marketing career. Things weren't going the way he expected them to. Became depressed. Had this little idea. Started talking to people about it. Next thing you know, complete trajectory change in his life. And now he follows those musings and he follows connection, relationship, conversation. He's he is, everybody who knows Simon Sinek goes, oh, Simon Sinek, yeah, he's the Start With Why guy. He's also the Leaders Eat Last guy. He
Oh,
he's now working on,
infinite game.
yes, he's now working on friendship. But all of it is, it's all conversation around how to be in the world, how to work in the world, what the evolution is going to be, where we're going next. Like, he has these different themes that all coalesce around what it's like to be in this world in these different
Mm.
guises. And he's not, at this moment in time, he is one of the people who on his podcast will have people on that he does not agree with, and he will have
Oh, that's
really
good.
civil conversations with them.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but the whole idea of disagreeing with somebody does not seem to be that acceptable anymore. And it's
Oh, yeah,
behind
no.
closed doors. He's bringing it back out into the open,
Oh,
but
I
in a
love that because
respectful way.
yeah, yeah.
And I think
And
it's
so rather than canceling,
no,
using it to challenge your own
yeah.
thinking
And
about
and
things,
he
which I,
changes his
yeah,
ideas.
yeah. And number two,
Number two,
who's the second person?
The second person is an English woman who lives in this country. Her name is Caroline Hirons. Now, for anybody who
Oh,
doesn't
yes.
know her,
She's funny.
skincare expert, has a brand called Skin Rocks. She is somebody who says exactly what she thinks and does not care about the consequences. She's very driven to protect things that deserve protecting. Over COVID, she took brands to town that she had worked with, because she had a consulting business, and that's what's funded her brand business. I mean, this woman is a masterclass in business, and it's not recognized or realized, and I hope it will be, because she fixed my skin, and I've been watching the moves she's been making for years, and I'm like, that woman is smart. She is really smart. Even the way she's
We'll
gone.
make sure we put a link to her stuff in the show
Yeah,
notes for everybody. She's well worth a look.
even the way she's gone into getting investment for her company. She built the company, built the brand, did everything the way she wanted to do it, set the stall, funded it herself. And then for the next level, I mean, I'm really interested in what she's going to do next, because she is changing the industry. She already has changed the industry, but there's more to come. She's only just starting. She started charities over COVID because of the way the government packages meant that women, because largely women work in beauty, all those women who were out there working in beauty did not qualify for furlough. So she started a charity.
Yeah.
It was called Beauty Backed. She's started a number of things to do, and she's now looking at regulation to do with aesthetics.
Oh, interesting.
Because people are dying from BBLs that they're getting. I think she says they're dying from BBLs they get in garages and wherever.
What is BBLs? What does that mean?
Brazilian butt lift.
Oh, good God.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
there's a lot of conversation around regulation happening, and I really like her take on it, because she's not about over regulation, but she is about certain things deserve to be medical and done by doctors, and other things don't. And here is why, and here is, and here is the standard of care, and here it's blah blah blah. She's brilliant. Yeah, I think what she has done and what she is yet to do is, yes, it's in beauty, but it's a masterclass in business.
It's what's interesting about those two people that you've picked is they are both game changers, and I often think that nonconformists are game changers. I would love to continue having this conversation, but we have come to the end of the show. It has been absolutely lovely. And funnily enough, even though I've known you for a long time and really you're one of my dearest friends, I learned so much about you today I didn't even know. So there we go. I would like to thank you for coming on, talking about your views on nonconformity and the life that you've led, which has been, in my opinion, nonconformist in a different light than other people sometimes, which is a good thing. But I want to say thank you for coming on. And I also want to say thank you to our wonderful listeners for taking the time to listen to this current week's conversation about nonconformity. So go out there, continue to be your nonconformist selves, know that there's power in your difference, and fuck the status quo, as we always say. See you later, everybody.